Have a story to tell? I believe you. Ghost, cryptids, the unknown. Let's talk about it. This is My GhostCast.
Welcome to My GhostCast. Today's guest, we have Dr. Patrick Price. Mr. Price, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing great, sir. How are you?
Excited and looking forward to this interview.
I tell you what, this is a program that's long overdue. A lot of people need to know this type of information because there's a lot of people out there, I believe, really hidden in the ranks. Some people are probably nervous or afraid to come forth with their stories, but I've been through enough of them. It doesn't matter anymore. The world needs to know.
I do. I'm with you on that. Awesome. Yeah, please tell us about yourself. That way we can introduce you to the audience and audience.
Okay.
Gets familiar with you.
Well, I always say my intro here, and I'll do my funny intro. This presentation is not supported by the FDA, AMA, ACA, FBI, SNA, CIA, or any other medical or military organization. Contact your rabbi, your sheikh, your guru, your religious leader before you listen to this because it may shock you. Okay.
I think they call that.
I'll start there. So, me, as you know, I've been a martial artist most of my life. Always drawn to the martial arts. I love the esoteric, if you will, the secret sides of the martial arts. But really, it's about the inside, your spirit self, and developing from the inside out. I had 12 years old. I had a near-death experience. I was in the ocean doing a storm and drowned, and I came back to life after that. But it was after in high school, I had a car accident in the back of a pickup truck, and 110 miles an hour went through a barbed wire fence, left me these nice little scars around my neck.
Wow.
And I lived. I didn't die, but it sure felt like I did. And after that experience is when I first began to hear someone else talking to me. And the very first time I heard really, like, people go to church and they go to pray and they go to their religious or spiritual things, and they don't always hear someone talk to them. I was sitting in the church with a group of guys that we all almost died together. And I was sitting there going, well, God, thank you for me still being here. Obviously, I have a purpose. And I heard someone say to me, says, I have something very special for you to do. And for once in my life, sitting in the church, I was raised in the Catholic schools, and I heard something the very first time. And I just sit there and go, what do you want me to do? But that was it. That's all I heard. And then after that, I began to have visions, see things before they happen. Like a lot of people, you may see someone getting hurt or injured in a trauma before it actually happens. And like I saw a friend going to get in a boating accident, a good friend of mine. And I called him next day. I said, please don't go do this one thing. Don't go here. And sure enough, he went there. And the next day, if I would not have told him what I saw in my dream, he would have died.
Wow.
And so that was high school that began. And then what really kicked it off over the years, after that, I have all these strange experiences of seeing things, hearing things, even hear what animals have to say. In 95, I had a near-death experience here in Houston, Texas, where I actually died and left my body. I had 104 fever for 3 days and actually physically died. I don't know how long I was dead, but after that experience, that's when everything really changed. And that became the veil lifted, and the spirit world became very visible to me. So that's the real beginning for me, I would say, in 95.
95, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
And of course, I became a doctor of chiropractic. I graduated in 96, and the chiropractic just gave me a license to put my hands on people and start doing physical, chemical, and emotional, and now spiritual work as well. So do I have a license to talk about spiritual beliefs? Well, I don't know. Do you need a license for that? Maybe we need a license for doing esoterics and metaphysical type work, because this is the unseen, the old world medicine, I call it. That after that, I had teacher after teacher appear to me, medical intuitives, shamans, medicine people, Tai Chi masters.
Extraordinary.
When I say the teacher, the student's ready, the teacher appears. Well, one after another, these people entered my life, and each person taught me to look at things quite differently and showed me things that I only heard about and dreamed about, but with my own eyes and my own body, I got to experience these things. And so that was the real awakening for me as well, is the teachers.
That's pretty interesting. That's funny, because I was thinking about how I met you. And when I met you, I had seen you for years performing on the martial arts stage at Japan Festival. And I was like, this guy's amazing, he's pretty awesome. And then when I first actually met you was at the 2012. They brought in Kono Sensei to the mix. And that's when I met you for the first time, like in person. So it was like really neat. And I was like, man, when I shook your hand, there was like an interesting feel. And I shook your hand. I was like, there's something different about this guy.
Well, you know your brothers out there. When you meet your brother, sometimes a handshake initiates like an experience. As some people, if you believe in past lives, which I very much do because I've experienced these things, is you believe that you've known someone from a time before. There's something familiar about the person.
Familiar.
And a handshake, a hug will reintroduce you again.
Yeah, that happened with me and my brother, my martial art brother, Deshaun. He joined our martial art class. It's all through martial arts. There's something, that connects on so many levels of martial arts. And so it was just, we connected eyes, and I instantly knew that we're related. And he felt the same way.
Yes, we learned something in martial arts. I thought, as you see me on stage, take a kick in the testicles. I mean, full power. I thought everybody did that growing up because that was the first martial art I studied. But I realized we were really insane, the guys that were doing all the strikes at the throat and the body, full blown. But that's what I first learned in the early 80s in Louisiana. It was called Ki, Chi, Ki, internal energy, and combat Ki. And really, I thought it was a trick like a lot of people. But as I got to the black belt level, I realized the black belts were telling me, no, you're not sucking up your testicles. You're not trying to protect them. You're not trying to avoid being hit. You're actually taking the full blow shin kick, instep kick to the testicles, full power. And I never understood at first, how are we doing this? But it was a step progress of you developing your inner self, your spirit self, if you will. And it got to the point where someone would kick me full blow. I've been kicked by people around the world in the groin. And of course, you've seen it live. And you know what? Literally, it feels like the person is not hitting you. Your aura or your biofield, we know this through research. Our college came out study this. And they realize something happens to the electromagnetic field around the body when someone tries to hit you. Now, the teachers who taught me didn't even really understand how it worked. And we've tried to understand for years. How can a person, a martial artist, develop a side of themselves, like the monks? When they hold them up on the end of their spears, they should pierce the body.
Yeah.
Different arts have studied different ways. But how is it we can take an impact with, over 1,000 pounds of pressure to your groin with no injury? It's still kind of a mystery, but there is some medical knowledge that says it's an exchange of negative ions, positive ions, and electromagnetic energy. There's a change in your field. And it definitely, when you're hit, the person actually receives an injury sometimes. I've seen a guy hit one of our guys so hard he could break all these boards, and he punched the guy as hard as he could in the throat and actually broke his knuckle. He broke his hand in the demonstration, the martial artist who was hitting the brick. How is that possible?
Yeah.
So there's a whole science that's unseen in the world that we still are just finding the outer limits of what human beings can truly do.
Yeah, I agree. I concur. There's it's the analogy of the I suppose Shrek, I think, made it abundantly clear about onion layers. We're barely hitting those layers, and people are like, listen to the experts, and I'm like, but are you really? Doesn't science keep still going on?
Mm-hmm. But there's one thing I understood is I always wanted to improve my vision. I wanted to see auras and feels like people were seeing. And I had friends who had the ability. They could literally lay on the ground in the field. And this is one thing I teach in classes is lay on a blanket or something on the field and look up at a beautiful sky during the day. And you put your eyes out of focus, like look at one of those paintings. and you'll begin to see these little bitty things moving all through the air. And now Tai Chi masters say that's the chi. There's little bitty, look like little paramecium under a microscope.
I
the
see them when I close my eyes. Yeah.
Right. And so I had two people who could see, one laying here and one laying here. And in between them, I could see it. When they left, I couldn't. But after the near death, I could start seeing it. So one thing I've learned is when someone has a special gift or ability, if you stand within their field, within their aura, you can attain their gifts and abilities. Wow. That's why a student learns with a teacher. Stand next to them as they demonstrate their technique. You can pick up the energy of what that person has and repeat the process.
It makes a lot of sense.
Does that make sense?
It does make a lot of sense. You know, and why certain teachers keep a pretty tight little group or these little guys all around them. I know that in my system, there's the guys that we call the four horsemen, you know, and these guys are just amazing, and they're around him and absorbing that information. That is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
So let me talk about a story. And this may help get us started here. I always knew there were other beings. I always knew there were spirits around me. I couldn't always see them, but I could feel them. While I was in chiropractor school, before I had the second near-death experience, there was a friend of mine, a fellow student, who was having these spirit things happen to them at home. And she was having a spirit coming to her in her home at night and holding her down against her will.
Yes.
She felt them touch her, hold her down forcibly. She said she could smell them. They had a smell to them. And I said, well, let me go over there and see. I want to experience it. I want to see what's happening in your house. And I became like a cleaner in a way. I would go to people's house and tried to interact with what it was. And they would do the same thing to me. I sit in her house at the time. She said it always happened. And all of a sudden, the temperature would change in the room. One of the key factors, it would get cold. It's like freezing in the room. And then you'd feel this heavy presence. And it was a presence that did not feel good at all. So these were actually dark spirits. And actually, they would try to hold me. But what happens is, out of our fears, when we see, hear, feel, sense something, we get nervous. Our field diminishes, your biofield, which is your protection. If you relax and realize they're not going to harm you, it is simply an illusion. They cannot touch you. And I felt it, and simply you could feel the energy in the room change as I just relaxed, and it tried to touch, harm. I could feel it trying to do something to me, but it is an illusion. Even though spirits at times can physically touch you, I'm not going to say that doesn't happen. I got plenty of stories about that one. You just relax with it if something's in your home, and you pray, because you have the Creator, you have God, whatever culture you're in. There is this higher being that will send protection for you. And so that was one of my first experiences of going to someone's home who was actually being touched and held against their will from an unseen spirit.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I remember as a kid watching a movie called The Entity.
Yeah.
And that gave you that feel. I mean, it scared the crap out of me. As I got older, I started to experience things holding me down, not allowing me to get up. I wasn't sure if every time it was for malicious reasons. I remember one time it was this weird noise was being made in the window at a new house that I moved in. And it just was making this noise, like sounded like a bird, like a messed up bird. But it was right there at my window. And something was holding me down, didn't allow me to turn around and see what it was. So I don't know if that was, either something trying to protect me or it was part of whatever was going on.
Well, one thing for sure, as you and I talked earlier about this, is once you begin investigating, looking into that metaphysical world, I'll say, the unseen world, once you step into that, you have to be careful. And I really recommend, if anyone decides to step into spirit world, is to find a teacher. Find someone who will help you do it the right way. Because once you step in and you begin to see a spirit, feel a spirit, you're now in their realm. They know you can see them. And that's when they will start contacting you. That's when they will help you, not help you, let's say, get you to lose sleep and distract you and mess with you all the time. Because once you're there, others will come. That I promise.
Wow. Some of us stumble, as a goof guy, just hitting every branch on the tree going down by accident.
But people, if they do want to see them, I tell people, if you do want to learn to see, a spirit, which they're everywhere. Ghosts are always walking everywhere around you all the time. In fact, the name that people give them that I've learned are called earthbounds. This is someone who's died and passed on and have not gone to the light. They've not moved on. They're stuck here. And the Buddhists and the Taoists discuss this. They discuss this in the 4 levels of dying. You know, where when you're dying, the 3rd levels and everything blacks out, you lose consciousness. But the 4th level of dying they discuss is the bright light. And if you've not done meditation, you've not done some type of spiritual work to see this type of bright flashing light, when you die, some people become frightened of the light. And what happens, these people then become stuck in the world. They'll actually go back to the birds. We have the doves flying in my house right now. Actually, you will have the spirit will get stuck. And what they'll do, they'll go back to where they're at, their home. They don't know they're dead. They'll go back to with their family, trying to eat food, trying to do their daily activities because they don't know they're dead. But what happens to the spirit is it gets frustrated because no one talks back. No one has interactions with them. And that's when the ghost starts to realize, which could be you or I, that, hey, maybe I'm dead, right? And then they go into another layer of fear because now they really realize they are dead. And this is where a lot of beings, I really believe the Buddhists and the Taoists are correct about this. People do get stuck. Maybe not always because of the light, but other teachings teach us that if you have a traumatic accident, you die by gunfire, someone kills you, a fire, something dramatic and traumatized, you die so quickly that you get stuck here as well. And so through trauma, you will be stuck here. And so this is why other mediums and people who do spirit work help a person to not a person, but like a spirit, and guide them back to the light so they can go home. And this is a very much accepted work in the metaphysical world, around the world, many places you'll go.
Yeah, I've been a lot of the stuff I've been watching and paying attention to, they have some form of guiding people into the light or out of that loop. Or, you know, some of them call it a ghost loop. Everybody's got a little different names for it, but that makes a lot of sense, actually. You know, we're talking right now with Dr. Patrick Price. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Dr. Patrick Price, the Body Detective. I'd like to introduce you to our Houston office. This is the Houston International Wellness Center. And we'd like to tell you today a little bit about our story. Our story begins in Louisiana, where I grew up being a patient first to chiropractic. Many traumatic injuries disabled me in many ways and took away my legs at one time from the sports that I love so much, which is martial arts. And so today, because of chiropractic, I'm able to move again like I used to. And I'm also still a patient, not just a doctor. So today, what do we do here? We take you into 3 parts. We work on your physical body, the chiropractic, but plus techniques I've learned from around the world, working with shaman, medicine man, medical intuitives, these type of people. And then we do the detox and cleansing. That's very important just as well. And working with deficiencies you may have in supplements. So then the final component is the emotional component. A lot of people need to detox, or let's say neutralize their emotional charges. And this is something I really specialize in and enjoy quite a bit. So those 3 parts are essential: physical body, chemistry, and emotional body. So here in our office, we take those challenging cases. We try our best to solve the mystery. And once again, I'm Dr. Patrick Price, the Body Detective, challenging you to come visit us here at our Houston office. You take care.
We're back with My GhostCast and our special guest, Dr. Patrick Price. He's going to give us a little bit of history.
Let's discuss history for a second. John Gassner, it was the 1700s, early 1700s. He's an ordained priest. He's the guy that came forth and talked about with the Catholic Church that people have spirits in them. They can become possessed, or spirits can be attached to them. In fact, he talked about the family curse. And what he meant was one person can die and become a ghost, let's say your great-great-grandmother. And so the family can have perfect harmony, and then suddenly one person in the family starts acting really bizarre, having a lot of psychotic events, angry, upset. And so he talks about that great-great-grandmother who passed on is still here, and they're causing trouble with the one person who's weak in the family, the one person who's susceptible to them. And so he was known for removing spirits. And that was the 17th century. So the Catholic Church still uses methods back from those days to actually remove a spirit. But they don't distinguish between what I mentioned earlier, an earthbound, someone who's basically a ghost here, versus a demonic spirit, a spirit who's never been in a physical form. So that's the two that most cultures I've studied with, and most books, there's plenty of books out there, talk about those two distinct things, earthbound and demonic. But the church says, be gone, evil spirit. Like Jesus in the New Testament talked about the unclean spirits. Well, they look at it like remove it through prayer or however, but it's like throwing a tack out in the street for a car to run over for someone else to pick it up. And so that's why over the years, many people have refined their methods that once a spirit is cast out of a person's body or removed, say, even from your home, is they're sent back to the proper place, back to the light, if you will. And so I wanted to discuss that because that's all the way from the 17th century that comes from.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, please tell us about it.
So let's talk about this for a second. What's accepted today is we had in the 70s, the 80s is multiple personality disorder. Okay, that's what someone was first diagnosed with, and that seems to be multiple personalities. We know the people who discovered psychiatry, psychology here in the United States, most of them after a while, seeing people in mental institutions, realize it's not just the person is fragmented. Maybe they were abused as a child, but these people actually had more than one personality. And so that was always the controversy in this country is, okay, that's a completely different person there in that body. Is this a spirit or is this person just really fractured or chemically imbalanced? And then
how do they get that whole personality and have all the quirks and perks that come with that? That's interesting.
Well, we know this. We know this for sure, and there's a book, Remarkable Healings by Dr. Moody. She's a psychiatrist that uses hypnosis, and she realized a lot of her people were having a lot of chronic illnesses, headaches, pains, and they weren't getting past their usual emotional issues. And so through hypnosis, she discovered that there was someone else there. Now, this is today. She's still alive, Dr. Moody. And so we looked at it like my teachers and look in her book. It's a great reading book, by the way, if you're really interested in looking into this.
Yeah, I'm going to look into that for sure.
Remarkable Healings. And they talked about how does a spirit first attach to someone? Say you have a ghost in your house. Well, any kind of trauma, you physically get hurt, you get severely angry, you get depressed, you get emotionally unset, that spirit will attach to first your field, your aura. This is where the attachments happen. They happen first in the field because they have devices that measure this. All the way back from the 1920s, Dr. Whitman, he found out there's a device he could actually detect and remove a spirit in your field. This is a psychiatric doctor from the 1920s, Dr. Whitman. Wow. He said 30 years amongst the dead, right? That was his book. So Mary, this is nothing new. It's just these people didn't really reach a limelight of modern psychology or psychiatric work today, but it exists. And so three things. One, you get the trauma. Two, alcohol, drugs, substance abuse. And one that is terrible today is called crystal meth. And a lot of us know about the meth, right?
Yeah.
Literally, your field is your protection. But if you're doing this particular drug like meth, it literally puts holes. You'll see holes. If you can see an aura, see a field with your own eyes, or use the Russian devices, the GDV machines, they can measure your field. You'll see you literally have holes in your field. So we're always trying to put the medical knowledge to the spirit world these days so it makes more sense to more people. It's more mainstream. So alcohol, the same thing. Your field literally diminishes. And when that happens, you form an attachment can happen. And if it's an earthbound spirit, maybe that spirit who died, they died from a drug overdose. They died from alcohol abuse. So like energies attract like. So if you're a drug addict, a spirit who died will attach to you because they're familiar with you. And what happens? That person begins to do more drugs, drinks more alcohol, becomes more unstable, that multiple personality really sets in. And then the one that we don't always talk about is sexual festations. Dr. Moody says it. Someone who's very out of balance, someone who has a spirit on them, in them, sexual interactions, just like a virus, it'll get inside you. It's a matter of your body's healthy enough to get it out of the body, if you can get your field healthier again. So those are the three main, there's a lot of ways, but looking worldwide, what other people said, the medicine people to the psychiatric world, the ones who do study this, is those are the three main things they see how we get attachments. And if they attach to your field long enough, that's when a spirit can actually inhabit you. And so when a spirit actually gets inside a person's body, it can affect their organ function. Definitely different medical conditions will arise, but you have a spirit inside you. But the difference is from the church is it an earthbound or is it a demonic spirit?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they don't distinguish between.
That made more sense than what I've heard, out throughout the years, in search for knowledge of the stuff.
Yeah, no, demonic spirit, dark spirit, whatever you like to call them, they have never been human. So when they inhabit or come into a person's life, they're here to really cause some trouble, cause chaos. That is their job. They don't like any form of love in any way. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you the three things about this one. And this is, I promise, if you just listen to these three things, and I even have some notes here I took just to make sure I told you guys the right things, because there are so many misinformation about this. I like to be as clear as I can, because when I began studying this, I began a worldwide tour of teaching to understand this stuff, how to work with people, how to remove spirits. I mean, it's kind of my unseen work with myself. But we're in probably over 10 countries now. We've taught people how to deal with this. And these are the three things we teach. If a spirit interacts with you, especially a demonic spirit, it knows your deepest, darkest secrets and fears about yourself. So if you have a worry about your physical health, a worry about money, your self-confidence, doubt, it attacks the individual that way. It's almost like if you worry about money, your job, and like right now, look at everybody worrying about their jobs. Well, that's like a field day for them.
I bet.
And they just make it worse. They intensify it and make it worse when they come into your life. So does that make sense to you?
Makes sense.
That's the first, the individual. The second thing is they come into a relationship, a couple. They will start to begin arguments, fighting, confusion, chaos. And what do you have? Separation of love, possibly divorce.
Yeah.
That is one of their second goals. And we're talking, once again, not about an earthbound, a demonic spirit. Right. The very third thing and the final thing that a demonic spirit does, it comes into a family unit. And it usually comes into the weakest link in the family. It's like you have a chain link. Any links that have a hole in it, they find a way to attach and eventually get on the person. And so when that happens, that one person in the family, and you probably know somebody like this, can be the one person that becomes the manipulator of the family.
Yeah.
Hey, John was doing this. And they go to John. Hey, John, Mary's doing this. And they cause conflict within a family, to the whole family just implodes. And they separate. And I've watched this firsthand so many times, this complete chaos of a family. So those are the three things. If people understand what a demonic spirit does, it will come into three. And this is where people commit suicide. To me, when you actually kill yourself, you're actually possessed at that moment.
Wow.
That is what happens to a person.
It's funny you say that. That was one of my first trips to Japan. Actually, my second trip to Japan. My first trip, I was just caught up in the whole idea of it, We were in Tokyo, and hitting up all the scenes. So I was like, this is neat, The second time around, it's already passed. The excitement's passed a little. You get to kind of see and feel around. It's funny that you say that, because as I was there, the longer I was there, the more I started feeling this sadness, this dread, this concrete everywhere. It was a really dreadful feeling. And it was like, how much is your life worth? You started hearing these sounds all through. So I was like, what? I'm like,
Yeah, so you're hearing somebody else talking to you, right? And it almost seems like it's your own thoughts, right?
Yeah. And
there you go.
That's why I was like, well, man, you're answering a lot of questions I have, that's why I was like,
the rest of my office, almost every week, there's a patient comes in and they hear these negative things about themselves. I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm stupid, I'm terrible, I can't make enough money, my job hates me. And they hear these things, and I tell them, so do you ever ask when you hear those, who are you? Is that really yourself? Or are you really hearing something else? Now, it could be an earthbound, but it definitely could be a demonic. They would call it infestation, just like parasites. They're parasites that spiritually can link and get into a person.
Yeah.
So when you hear these kind of things, you need to ask yourself, is this me or is this something else? Because if you, like you say, Japan, you go to a place where there's been lots of war, lots of death.
Yeah.
You can hear, if you can hear and see, you're going to walk into a buffet of entities and spirits.
Man, yeah, I thought, I felt that after about 2 weeks. I spent about 2.5 to 3 weeks when I head out there, and I started feeling that toward the end. The dread and the colors were looking different. I'm like, do I have a new lens on? Do I have a set of glasses? It was an ugly feeling.
Right. Well, think about this also. Now, you being the good guy that you have a lot of light, and someone has a lot of light. Actually, their biofield will be huge, 10 feet, 20 feet. You'll have a large electromagnetic fence around your body. Well, the idea, what did the monks do in the old days? They put the hood on, and they learned, and I've trained with some monks, and they learned to pull their field in to make themselves like a tree, to quiet, so they're unseen, because those days monks got murdered and killed a lot, right? The only time they open their field is when they begin to do their teachings. They open up their field, and that way they let their light be seen. But if you walk into a place when you know there's a lot of darkness, a lot of death happen, and you walk in there like, man, look at this, I'm in Japan. You open up your field, well, guess what? They see you. Okay.
There's that old saying.
They know you're there.
That old saying: the darker the light, the brighter the light, the darker the shadows.
Well, you're like a food for them. They want to feed off your light, and then that's what spirits do. They basically can attach to you and drain you. This is very common, right? So when I tell people, if you know you have a lot of light and you're very conscious of your field, like you practice Tai Chi and Qigong, you can actually expand your field, is pull it in when you go to places you know there's lots of darkness.
Yeah.
Don't let your field go out so bright, because your field goes out, you're like a bright light. It's like they can put their finger, there you are, they can see you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I learned this from the monks. The monks know that pull it in and then let it come out.
There's a couple of people I work with that are extremely negative, and I don't like to be around that. So
I'm sure all they hear is negative talk all day long. When someone is in a bad mood, sometimes we take it personally, like the person just doesn't like me, or they're just rude to me. Actually, that person is probably living in such a negative thought pattern. Their own thoughts become nothing but self-doubt. And so that's what that person hears all day. They hear all this negative feedback and talk. And it's like a person who's sick and ill. They don't feel good. So all they think about is all the health they don't have, all the things they can't do, all the life, the relationship I don't have with someone else. And so they become a real negative field where their field starts to collapse. When your field collapses, you invite entities to attach to you. Yeah. And these first would probably be earthbounds most of the time. But think of it like this for a second, Theus. Think of the opposite. What if you're a person who's in a power position? Okay, you're a CEO of a company. You're a religious teacher. You're a politician, someone who loves power. Wouldn't that be a great place to be if you're a demonic spirit is attached to a person who loves greed and loves power?
Yeah.
That absolutely happens to a lot of people as well. The more someone seeks to have power over others, to have this authority, to be in control, they want to be in control. This is an invitation to say, please invest in me. Yeah, and we've worked on people in other countries. There are basically people who run countries. I'm not going to say any names, but when we go country to country, we end up working on people who are major leaders in these areas. And these people are just infested and have attachments all over their body because they're in such the eyes of so many people. There's a lot of, as they call in the Arabic world, a lot of bad eyes on them, right? Mm-hmm. And so you have to help these people remove these attachments off of them. But if someone loves the power, like a politician, I'm in control, well, that is an invitation for a demonic entity to take you over, because what more else than to have power over people, right?
Right. And a lot of that going on with circumstances going on now, you know?
Sure.
You're seeing that.
Now think of our martial art history. A warrior goes into battle, right? Mm-hmm. Help protect me, right? But what does a warrior also say? You see it in a lot of movies, right? Let's think of the samurai if you're talking about Japan. Please help me defeat my enemies. Help me kill this other guy. Do you really think God's involved in that? Do you think God's going to help you just go out there and kill other human beings? What's going to help you? What's going to help you destroy another person? It's not
Another
going to be from the light.
dark entity.
You're going to be possessed. So that's how people become so possessed into a war, because dark entities, this is a buffet for them. This type of negativity of hate and want to killing each other is literally, you're going out to the Ryan Steakhouse and go to the buffet. That is a buffet for them, war.
Man.
So you literally become possessed going into battle. And this has been written about in many journals, even in Japanese history. Literally, the warrior becomes possessed before battle. And in the Congo, I talked to a colonel in the military one time. He was in Africa, and he says the Congo warriors, before they go to battle, they go through a process of literally getting possessed before they go to battle by multiple spirits. He said, when we went to shoot these guys, you had to shoot them over and over again. They would not die. He goes, and literally, he goes, I didn't really believe in spirits. He goes, but I do now after fighting those guys. He goes, literally, their eyes were so crazy and they were so powerful, they were possessed. And then they got to find out they have a process of how to possess their warriors before they go to battle.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That takes the spiritual warfare to a whole nother level, huh?
Yes, it does. So remember, if you go to defeat your enemies, watch out, okay?
Man,
Think about somebody, think about someone in life, person that's become really so angry. They literally lose themselves and they get those crazy eyes, right?
Yeah.
A lot of those experiences anyway. Have you seen them do things that are like inhuman when they get so angry?
I have.
So they may not be possessed, but definitely a spirit will attach to them. It'll draw a spirit to them.
Wow, that makes more sense than you realize.
Makes a whole other sense, right?
Yeah, it does.
Because you want to be powerful. You want to do these powerful things. Well, be careful who you're talking to, okay?
I did have a friend. He was foolish kid. And I kind of get it. He had a lot of issues growing up. He wound up enjoying sleeping in graveyards and asking spirits to come join him. And his life was like so messed up on so many levels. Like, how do you get like the worst luck ever? But he's inviting people that probably haven't left or things to enter him of some sort,
Sure. I mean, very much can happen.
Yeah.
You have to be careful who you're talking to, because when you pray, you meditate, however form that you do your spiritual work, is be careful who you're talking to. It's like going to a psychic and go, man, a psychic was really cool. They told me all about themselves. Well, I used to be very naive to this world, but now I understand. If you're going to someone who's going to tell you your future and stories about you, how do you know that person is the person you're talking to? How do you know you're not like Dr. Edith Forrest? She wrote a book about the unseen. And in I think the early 80s, she wrote her book. And she says when she did her hypnosis work, she first of all had to remove the spirit she was talking to first in the person, then she could get to the person. That's where they're having mental problems. So when you're going to see a psychic like this, how do you know you're talking to the person and not the spirits that are possessing that person? Because if someone has a lot of childhood injuries and had a lot of emotional trauma, maybe a lot of relationship challenges, that invites spirits to join with you and then possess you. And so a dark entity is like a very highly trained lawyer. They can be sneaky. They can know, oh, I see your business is going to do very bad next month. I see terrible things happen. Then you start to believe that. And think about that for a second. They implanted a thought in your mind that something bad's going to happen. And what happens? You actually create it.
Yeah.
It's not that it's going to happen to you. They helped you to manifest it by just making you believe for a second that possibility exists.
Wow. Yeah.
So be careful who you go to. If you go to somebody for that kind of a spiritual advice, make sure that person is in balance. They're using prayer and they're clearing themselves. Very important. The thing is, we all have these gifts and abilities. We all do. We don't exercise them. It's like a martial art technique. You have to practice your technique and refine it until you get better and better at it. I mean, I'm not a psychic, but when people come in, basically you're reading what's in their field. Your field is like your Wi-Fi. Your brain is not where the information comes from. We literally, in our EEG studies, your biofield is where your knowledge and information comes. Your spirit came into this body, so you brought all this information from a previous life in this body. So you're just connecting to the brain. The brain's the processor, but the Wi-Fi has the information. You see?
Wow. When you put it that way,
And so everyone has the ability to connect to someone else's field and simply get the same messages, like I said, the teacher earlier in their field, and pick up what that person is feeling. You can pick up what they're going through, their thoughts, their feelings, if you focus. But once again, you need to practice something like meditation, qigong, some kind of practice where you develop that side of yourself.
Wow. I'd like to, at some point, bring you back later, and you can maybe go over to the audience ways to perhaps some of those exercises, or at least to direct them maybe to you, or some way to help them out. Depends on, I suppose, where they live or how far they're willing to travel.
Well, one thing I can tell you right now, it's very simple to begin with what? Cleansing and fasting. Every culture in the world has had fasting for centuries, right? Water fast, lemon juice fast, fruit fast. The idea is when you fast, I don't know if you ever did a long fast, once you're in a fast for so many days, you literally begin to hear the other side very clearly. If you don't believe in angels and the angelic realm, you just haven't got deep enough into your side and removed the distractions around you of life to hear them, because they're there. And the more you do something like a spiritual act, I call it, to fast, do it like a lemon juice fast for 7 days. Within that third or fourth day, you're going to begin to have a really clear consciousness. So you're going to hear the messages that are for you. You don't need a psychic. You just need to remove the distractions from your mind. And then you will begin to hear the answers to all your own questions. So fasting and a practice of stillness, silentness, like a very slow qigong you see these guys do, it's like a meditation.
Mm-hmm.
If you have trouble meditating, I suggest fast first, and you will get very clear just on your first fast. Does that make sense to you?
It makes sense. It makes sense. No.
Like the Muslims, right now it's Ramadan, right now, right?
Yeah.
Life is Muslim, and so right now they fast. They go from sun up to sunrise to sunset, and they have no food or water all day. And they do this for almost a month, from moon cycle to moon cycle. So it's a time for prayer. It's a time for them to connect to the Creator, to God.
Interesting. All right, guys, we are going to our next break. Again, we're with Patrick Price. This is My GhostCast.